Good evening on this very cold February day. I'm going to convene our school board meeting of February 25th, 2014. Member Slegapunko, if you would do the roll call.
Punch me in here.
Oh.
Okay. Thanks, Chair Murneke. Member Harla. Here. Member Johnston. Here. Member Leffler-Kemp. Here. Member Chair Murneke.
Here.
I am here. Member Welty.
Here.
Member Westholm.
Here.
Superintendent Gronseth.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Crawford. Deputy Clerk Hansen. Here. Secretary Tebow. Here. Let's see, and student representatives. Student Representative Manning. Here. And let's see, and Kobe's student representative is not here. Okay. All right, we have a quorum, Chair Murneke.
Thank you, Member Slegapunko. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now go on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's moved by Member Harla to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Westholm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Reading and approving of the minutes. We start off with our special school board meeting on January 21st. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Westholm moves, second by Member Welty. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The regular school board meeting on January 21st, approving the minutes. Is there a second? Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Westholm, second by Member Welty. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Special school board meeting, January 31st, 2014. Is there a motion to approve? So moved by Member Harla, seconded by Member Leffler-Kemp. Any discussion? Member Johnston. Whoops. Here we go.
Mr. Chair, I did have a comment on the regular minutes. I thought I was on the wrong one. You went so fast, but when we're done on the one on the regular meeting on the 21st, I did have one comment on that. Sorry, but I missed that so fast. We could do it after we got done with this.
We'll vote this and go back?
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure, no, not at all. All right, all in favor of the January 31st motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. Member Johnson, would you like to discuss something on the January 21st regular school board meeting?
Yeah, thank you for your patience, and sorry I missed you, but just wanted to bring up at the end there, we talked about this, I want to bring it up here, it's not really on the agenda, but it's on page 7. And again, that was the thing where we had a public comment about, I think, the paraprofessionals. And when I read this, I remembered that we didn't quite talk about this. I still think that even though we talked about it slightly about trying to bring up like a para 101, the comments reminded me that we had asked about staff development and budgetary things. I still think that's a very relevant topic for us. So just bringing that up, reminding the board that we did talk about that, and I hope that we can get that on the agenda for next month.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. We now move on to school and community recognition. Very excited about this. I turn the mic over to Assistant Superintendent Crawford.
Good evening, members of the board. This month I'm pleased to present Quick Trip Incorporated, represented tonight by District Leader Len Froelich, for recognition. Quick Trip recently presented a donation of $10,000 to ISD 709 to help fund digital fabrication labs, also known as Fab Labs. Our district is in a 2-year process to establish Fab Labs and Denfeld and Duluth East High Schools. These labs are being adopted by schools as platform for project-based hands-on science, technology, engineering, and math STEM education. Plans are underway to install equipment and begin training in September of 2014. Students and community members would begin accessing the labs by September 2015. Many thanks to Quick Trip for their support.
To the members of the Duluth School Board, on behalf of Quick Trip Inc., all across Wisconsin, we actually want to say thank you to all of you. The warm reception we've received from you with our plans of coming into the Twin Ports in your community has just been overwhelming. In my 19 years with the company, it's been really heart-filled, just all the people we've met here, the kindness, and just the opportunity to become part of your community. And we are truly looking forward to working with you and the schools and the children in your schools for many, many years to come. So again, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Harla, our audience, we have it there. We are now moving to our audience section where members of the community are given 3 minutes to speak, and we're looking forward to hearing your input. And today we're going to start with Mike Murneke.
What's going on? Yeah, set the timer for this guy.
Good evening, board members. On a sad note, we learned today, I was with the superintendent, we learned today the passing of Charlie Bell. I want to make a real quick statement as far as what Charlie has done for the school district. He's been a phenomenal supporter. He's a very successful businessman, and he had a full plate. And yet he took time to help us out at Denfeld and with our public school stadium Ordine Central levy referendum. He marshaled a lot of forces, worked tirelessly, attended all the meetings. Mr. Leiter, Mr. Westone, myself, we went to a lot of meetings, and Charlie was always there. PSS was an awful wreck when we started to go on this path. We had holes in the iron, and we had one toilet for the men, and I remember playing the Denfeld Central game, and there'd be 8,000 people with 2 toilets, and it was just a mess. And it took a positive person. There's a lot of negativity out there, and people are, get a great deal of pleasure, I think, making negative comments, and Charlie just didn't have time for that. He said, we're going to get this done, we can do it. And there are a lot of people said, it's not in Duluth, and we did. And today, when you go to PSS and you look at the football games, the soccer games, boys and girls soccer and the track meet, and you look at that beautiful facility out there, we owe a lot to Charlie Bell, and we want to thank him so much for all he's given to our kids and to our community. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Murneke. Our next speaker is Virginia, and I'm sorry about this, but I think it's Shirley. Veronica Shirley. I apologize for the... Not yet. I don't think. You know, you've done this. What was the name? Curly. Okay.
Thank you for your time this evening. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of the school bus drivers of ISD 709. Each of you has received a copy of a letter that was written and signed by the school bus drivers in early December 2013. You will also find a copy, the last page, the third page, of the current policy that is in place for our district on student behavior and consequences while riding on a school bus, Minnesota Statute 121A59. And there's also the last thing you received, a copy of a blank student behavior report that is used when we do a write-up on student behaviors on the school bus. As a school bus drivers, I'm speaking for all of us, we are asking that the school boards to seek any progress reports that have hopefully transpired since the drafting and delivering of our letter to our boss and to Mr. Bill Hansen. And tonight, we'd also like to recommend to the district that your focus handbook that is mailed out in the fall does not go to print for the 2014-15 season and mailed to the households until the current policy regarding consequences while riding on a school bus is revised, or better yet, is used. And we can tell you tonight that it is apparent that there is no set policy to manage student behavior on our school buses. And the worst is that the students know this. This is making our job as drivers extremely difficult. I will add that as of recent, there has been a push in consequences, yet nothing is consistent. And we do understand that it is the responsibility of the school to act on student behavior issues while riding on the school bus, which then leaves me to state that as drivers, we can no longer accept a time lapse in response to most behavior issues to be 2 to 3 days, or at times, not at all. Example, a student inappropriately touched another student on my bus. The violated student's parent called my boss. He wrote up the report and faxed it to the school. There has not been a response to date. That happened a couple of months ago. That young girl gets on the bus every day knowing the boy got away with violating her. And the communication between the school and the transportation department is lacking. Example, Monday morning, 2 students were waiting at their bus stop to go to school. They had not been notified that they were suspended from the school bus. While site-based management may work in the school, it is not appropriate for the school bus. If a driver is able to hand their student behavior report to administration at the transportation office, and that person make the call on the consequence, then phone the parent, phone the school, the issue of time lapse would be over, and it would be more efficient and respectful for all involved. Student behavior reports could be managed in minutes instead of days with a working policy in place. I'll finish by saying while time and monies are being spent on the classroom, there's a serious problem brewing outside. The behaviors I'm talking about today do not include little Johnny taking little Susie's hat. They are at times criminal and frightening to the driver who is alone on the school bus, not to mention the innocent students on the bus. With monies coming into the district, we hope that it is discussed to place a permanent helper on high-risk routes and money spent on giving your drivers and aides all first aid training.
Thank you, Veronica. Our next speaker is Lynn Gert. Welcome, Lynn. Thank you for coming on this cold evening.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial Public Policy Committee, and I want to welcome our new school board members. And in a moment, I will give those of you that haven't received this, which is those of you that are new, the Policy for Racial Equity in Education that the Clayton Jackson McGee Public Policy Committee worked on a couple years ago. And I'm speaking specifically tonight on behalf of the committee to support the proposed Ojibwe Immersion Language Program, which is aligned. We have 5 major policy goals in this racial equity public policy document, and one of those is to support the revitalization of Ojibwe or other First Nations languages. And so we're really excited about this bold and strategic proposal, and we really encourage your support. And I also wanted to mention, because I saw in your proceedings document that you also will be getting an update on out-of-school suspension work, which is also aligned with one of our policy proposals about racial equity in education. And so we want to support your efforts to continue to reduce out-of-school suspension because of the impact that will have on kids, particularly kids that are not achieving at the rate that they deserve to. So we applaud your efforts and thank you for your work, and I will distribute this for those of you that are new. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Our next speaker is Maji Guanagash, Gordon Jourdain. Gordon, you'll tell me how I did. Thank you. And welcome.
Bonjour, Kinauya. Ninma Jigone Ashandigo, Engdunjiba, Kakichiwanang Jaganashioking. Ginitari Nokumis Pepakoita Mokishinikazo, Gishnikazo, Mozono Gilto Teminan. Kiagashi, Angimachi, Wichia, Webendimoe. Apanegongia, Gikanainima, Kanemindimuwe with Kaningane Chiawian. Mio Ayagota, Anizi Gunongum, Mio Ishwasubipun, Kenima Chata Webendimoe, Mio Metas Gutok, Ashini and Gitsubiwona Giziganima Chat. Bonjour, Miigwech. That was the language of this land when your ancestors came across here, when they first stepped on this land. And it's still here, and it's really, really strong. And I'm proud to say that I was raised by my grandmother up in Canada, near the Boundary Waters canoe area. We could actually see the lights of Ely in the wintertime. And I said, wow, I want to go there someday. And I did. Went to the Blueberry Festival, which is nice. I was raised by my grandmother, and it's the tradition of Ojibwe people to raise one of their grandchildren so they can, because we're an oral tradition people, we bestow our knowledge to our young ones. My grandmother passed away, it'll be 8 years ago in May, and she was 114 years old. And I carry all of her teachings, and it is through her lens that I look at this world. I'm a first language Ojibwe speaker. I didn't go to school until I was 7 years old in Canada. And I didn't realize that I had to have a piece of paper to teach the language that I'm speaking. So I did. I came to America 10 years ago without a degree. And now I'm finishing up I finished my master's degree this past spring, and I'm working on my doctor's degree. That's the determination that I have, knowing that I'm strong as a native Anishinaabe Ojibwe. And that is what the gift I want to impart on our children, not only the Ojibwe children, but all the children of the people in the world. Miigwech.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Kyle Raskorki. Kyle, welcome.
Is it close enough? Must have been.
Raskowski?
Roskowski.
And I'm Polish. I should know how to do that.
Hand was a little shaky even as I was writing.
Okay.
So. Thank you for letting me speak. I just want to also say a little bit about the immersion program, my support for it. My children are both currently in 3rd grade and 1st grade at the Myers-Wilkins School, and they both had the opportunity to go through the language immersion program with Maji, and I just really think it's enhanced their lives. I had huge reservations when we first started out to whether, if they're getting immersed in this language, are they still going to keep up on their other skills, on the other subjects, different things like that. And I was very nervous about that, but my wife was persistent, so we put them in there, and it turned out to be the best thing we ever did for our children. They learned music in class, they learned the language through music, they learned it through different events, they got outside, explored just explore the outdoors. Through their math, I was having my kids, what's Beijing plus Nij, and they'd answer in Ojibwe as well. And it was just really fun to be able to do that, and I think it really enhanced their lives. And yeah, they're both just top of their class now in school. They're both excelling. So yeah, just give my support. I know it'd be too late for them to get into it. I mean, we wish we could keep them going, but just to get more kids that opportunity to learn this language. It's a beautiful language, and I just think it'd be wonderful to get that into the schools. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roskowski. Our next speaker is Lydia Schenkel. That's a block from my house where I grew up. Welcome, Ms. Schenkel.
Hello, my name is Lydia Schenkel. Some of you may recognize me from the Education Committee meeting where I also spoke. A little more composed today. I'm speaking in support of the Ojibwe Language Immersion Program. My daughter is currently a part of the Enwiang Immersion Language Nest at UMD. This is a very unique program that a child is only able to attend until the first day of kindergarten. After the children leave Enwiang, there's nowhere for these amazing children to continue their practice of the beautiful language of Anishinaabe. By implementing the immersion program in the Duluth Public Schools, you're providing somewhere for them to continue. This also provides an outlet for other children who've not been able to experience Enwiang, the opportunity to learn Ojibwe. At the Education Committee, all of you spoke about cultural competency. This is cultural competency. We live in an area where there's a high population of Native American people of all different tribes and bands. In our schools, I looked at your graduation data. All of your other ethnicities, their education rates have improved. Native American graduation rates have gone down. This is a problem. This kind of program allows students to feel that they have a place within the school district, that the school district recognizes the importance of their culture and their language. There is high school leveled classes that only go to year 2 in Ojibwe, and there's a few students, not many, that participate in that. I was one of those students, and we did a mixed class because there's 3 of us. This type of program would allow the high school students who are in this Ojibwe program who may be at risk for graduation to possibly partner up with these younger children, to find them mentoring other children in something that is important to them. It gives them meaning, it gives them purpose, a reason to stay in school and continue to their graduation.
You're doing a wonderful job.
My daughter has been in this program since September. We speak Ojibwe at home before she entered this program. My fiance, he is 100% Native American. It is important to us to have that link to his culture. She counts and sings every day. They sing the little songs, and she comes home and she doesn't even refer to things in English sometimes because it's not in her, well, she knows the English, but it is becoming, certain things are her first language, Ojibwe, which I am a very proud parent to be able to say that. And for her, she can count to 29 in Ojibwe, which is, for a 3.5-year-old, kind of amazing. She will be able to be in kindergarten in the fall of 2015. My fiance and I are like, where do we send her? What do we do? She'll spend another year in the amazing immersion program at UMD, and then what? Then there is nothing. There's nowhere for her to continue the language use other than at home. There's nothing for young children out there. We can't find anything for her to go, and this would be that something. This would be that something special. I know that the district is struggling with enrollment numbers and keeping, a lot of children, other children are going to parochial and charter schools, other districts. This gives you an advantage. This shows that we care, that we know it's important. It gives you something that other school districts don't have anything like this. Nowhere in this area has anything remotely close to this. This would be another way for you to boost your enrollment numbers, raise those graduation rates, show the community that the Duluth Public School District cares about their Native American students and the Native American culture in this community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schenkel. Appreciate that.
Thank you for your time, Miigwech.
Our next speaker is Lauren Martell. Welcome, Lauren. Any other?
Good evening. Last month, the second district representative claimed we were losing money through the change in the pupil unit weighting calculations. That was not quite an accurate statement. As Mr. Hansen clearly pointed out, money was added to the basic formula to offset the changes. Several inaccurate statements have been made about state aid. The major problem with state aid is not flat state aid. It's not the deferred payment either. The real problem with state aid is best described as lost state aid tied to the huge loss of students since Mr. Dixon stepped into town. This problem was again blamed last meeting on generational differences. There just isn't as many kids in Duluth as there once was. Going back 40 years to explain the 2,000 students lost from the public schools over the past 7 years is not an accurate frame of reference. Duluth's population actually has been relatively stable for some time. There was a dip in the 90s, but birth records from both hospitals show that births bottomed out in 2002 and have been rising steadily ever since. This fact correlates with the demographic sections of the review and comment submitted to the MDE in 2007. Under the heading Light at the End of the Tunnel, it states, quote, "The good news is that the end of the student decline is in sight. Looking at the resident birth chart below, you can see it trending upwards. You can see kindergarten classes are larger than older elementary grades." This is from 2007. Even the Red Plan's demographic study clearly shows a bump in student population. Everyone but district administration and the people controlling this board knows the truth. Even the News Tribune has run some articles as of late showing that charter school enrollment has seen a sizable bump and that the Duluth Public School District has lost a significant percentage of the available student population in the city. The problem isn't a shrinking population. The problem is, after running up a bill of $500 million with interest on the bonds, the Duluth Public Schools are not competitive in the marketplace. Families are taking advantage of other options. I know the chair of this board, being the nice, genial man he obviously is, doesn't like negative comments. But you cannot solve a problem without facing reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martell. I appreciate your input. I'm sorry, there's one more. Madonna Os. Madonna. Thank you for coming out on this cold, chilly evening.
We're getting used to it, aren't we? I am Madonna Os. My 3.5-year-old granddaughter, Natalia Schenkel, participates in the all-day Enwayang Ojibwe language preschool. I'm here to urge you to support and move forward that initiative to start the program for a full-day kindergarten in the fall of 2014. And subsequently continue that through each progressive grade. Establishing and extending the progression of Ojibwe language program allows for the evolution of the children's experience as a holistic view, developing it, broadening it, their perspective that this becomes the norm, that it's not something unusual, but that it's part of our community and our school system. It minimizes and eliminates that division that gets created. It's a benefit to both Native and non-Native members of the school and the community by increasing that cultural understanding. My granddaughter Natalia and all the children participating in the program manifest the future. They are the students, but they're also the teachers. They're sort of cultural ambassadors. That's just personally, she's teaching me. Someone was talking about the number song, and I can attest as well, you know, she was living with me until a few months ago. So we spent a lot of time day to day, and she would teach me the song. She would say it, and I asked her to repeat it slowly to me, because she's just going, you know, it's so natural to her. And I repeated it after she said it to me again. And when I didn't get it quite right, as a 3-year-old might do, she says to me, "Not like that, Grandma." And then she says it for me again. You know, so it's just a small little moment, a small example of how really big this whole endeavor is. And I want to continue learning from her and learn from myself as well. But the kids are the key to that future. So thank you for your consideration. And
Thank you so much for coming out. I'd like to thank all of the audience members for coming out and giving us such input. Reading and communications and petitions, there are none. We move now to the report of the superintendent. Oh, I'm sorry. Member Welty.
Yeah, we don't have any communications listed here, but I would like to put in a request for something for us to consider at some point in the future. When I was on the school board, it was the early days of email, and I got some email from people who knew my personal email account, but times have changed, and of course we get a lot of email as a board now. And while that's slightly different than the letters that used to be sent to the entire board that were copied and sent out, I'm wondering if we shouldn't have a discussion at some point about how we should treat the email, and if it doesn't constitute some sort of official correspondence that we should acknowledge in some way. So I would like to have a discussion at some point. I just bring that up since we've got no other communications at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Welty. I'm sure we can have a discussion on that in the future. We now move to the superintendent's report.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Thank you. I too would like to thank all of our audience participation tonight. It is wonderful to have audience feedback and community feedback. That's a lot of what we did during Think Kids, is gathering feedback from people, because our schools do belong to all of us, and we should all have a part in our future and what that looks like. So now that the Think Kids sessions, the official sessions are all done, we're just about done organizing all the data that we collected, and we will be sharing that with the board, and we'll be posting that on our website as we usually do, as we continue the budget process and decision-making process for next year. And we'll also be using that to look at our school enrollments and how we plan to address these issues throughout the next year. And there'll be more opportunities to be a part of the conversation. And as always, I encourage people to be involved with board conversations, committee meetings, and the regular board meeting also. We also had some really good news about our graduation rates and our achievement gap. You've probably all seen by now the news that our graduation rate was up 4% as a district, and that we did make some progress in closing the achievement gap, some areas better than others. But I have to say that this didn't happen by chance. You know, there's been a great deal of effort and time that have gone into this, and our teachers and our administrators have been using very specific student data to create very specific interventions to help our students. And we've been partnering with many community organizations to improve student achievement and engagement of parents and community members as a whole. And as we go forward, it's going to be important for us to continue these partnerships. And I know that if as a community we all come together and we can all help our students to achieve amazing things. And in the long run, it makes our whole community healthier and stronger. So I just encourage everyone to continue to be involved in those conversations. Another conversation that we've been having is about our curriculum. As you know, one of our goals is to fully align our curriculum to state, national, and federal. I guess national and federal would be the same, wouldn't they? State, national, and local standards. And right now, as our baseline data shows in our plan, only about 40% of our curriculum is fully aligned. And our current goal would say that we would work on that over the next 4 years. Well, the Commissioner of Education and I both feel that this is too important to spread out over that long of a time. And so we are in agreement that we speed up this work and before the end of summer have our curriculum 100% aligned to state and national and local standards. And it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time by many of our teachers and our administrators to make this happen by the end of summer. But I believe that it's going to make a big difference for our teachers, for our students, and for the district as a whole. And we're currently developing a timeline for what this will look like and plan to come to you during the March Education Committee with a full plan and timeline for what that's going to look like. It's a very exciting opportunity for us, and MDE has agreed to help us along the way with some resources of staff and support as we go into this time period. It's something that while we have been balancing our budgets for a number of years, this important work has taken a hit. And it's time for us to really focus our energies on what we do, and that's educating kids, and the curriculum is certainly at the heart of all of that.
Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth. We have our buildings built, and now we can concentrate on our students and our curriculum, and I think you'll do a wonderful job doing that. We now go to the reports of standing committees. We start with Member Harla and the Education Committee.
Thank you very much, Chair Murdicke. I want to start out by saying that we had a very hearty, full discussion of meetings at the Education Committee meeting 2 weeks ago. In fact, 3.5 hours of discussion, which was heartfelt and we talked about each issue in depth, asked a lot of questions, and as a committee, I was really proud of the discussions we had as a board, and so just want to commend the group for that. The very first item that we had was a presentation. Initially, we were supposed to have students from the Dalian China Student Exchange Partnership come, but Assistant Superintendent Crawford gave a small presentation on the delegates that came to visit, and they, as a part of an international exchange between the Duluth Public Schools and the high schools that are affiliated with Dalian University of Technology in Dalian, China. So they are connected with East and Denfeld and ESCO schools. And so our families hosted about 30 students, and they had a chance to spend time in the schools, but then also connect with people around the community and see some of our sites. And they're hoping to continue this partnership for years to come. So it's recommended that the board receive this item as informational. And Chair, would you like me to just go through each of these and then? Or
correct.
Okay, great. The next piece we had a presentation on were the alternatives to out-of-school time suspension. We had a presentation from our climate coordinator, Ron Lake, and from Tanya Sconners, the Denfeld High School principal. We had a very long discussion about this at the group with kind of ranging from in many topics. All around the board, but we're seeing that this is an issue that that they're working to address, and I would say that we want to continue to support how they're moving forward in this, and I'm proud to see what's happening at the local schools. And I know while I was campaigning, heard a lot about this from community members, and I'm glad to see that from having a chance to be elected and sitting here that this is something that the district is working on. So. The next piece was the review of our wellness policy. As required by our wellness policy, Bill Hansen, the Director of Business Services, and Pam Bowe, the Supervisor of Child Nutrition, and Kevin Abrahamson, the Curriculum Coordinator, presented their annual review showing the compliance of food service, nutrition, and physical activity within Duluth schools. I want to give a specific recommendation to Pam Bowe, who's done a lot to get us up to date with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. I know there are a lot of districts that have struggled implementing this, and I want to say that she has done a lot in order to work on that, and just in general doing well with that wellness policy, and hopefully to continue, we'll be gathering that wellness committee here in the future. So that was also put forward as informational. The next piece was a great presentation that we had from the Duluth Public Schools becoming an accredited online learning provider. Adrian Norman, their principal with our schools here at ALC, brought along some staff members, and we had a great discussion about how we as a community can really, how we are integrating our technology into our schools. And if you had a chance to come to any of the Think Kids meetings, or if you head onto ISD709.org, you'll see that there's a video that was created for them, and Bill Gronseth, Superintendent Gronseth, makes a comment where he says that we're preparing students for careers that we don't know that they'll have in the future. And so if we don't take the chance now to be learning and connecting with technology, I think that that would be a loss. So I'm really, really proud of what they're starting and teaching the online learning. So that was also recommended as informational. And then also it was we received a grant from the Scott D. Anderson Leadership Foundation Fund of the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, and Rory Johnson of Proctor Public Schools submitted a grant in the amount of $24,000 to the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation for the consideration of funding the Scott D. Anderson Leadership Foundation Fund, and the grant will serve as a fiscal agent, and funds will be supported through the 12th annual Scott Anderson Leadership Forum this summer. I know this is a great opportunity and investment in how we can invite our students to become leaders for the future. So that was also recommended that the board receive it as informational. Chair?
Now we move on to the action items.
Okay, great. Whew. So the next piece that we had.
Take a drink of water.
So
there's a reason why you got this chair.
Get really excited about education. I've only snippets of really great conversations, about a half an hour per topic. So I'm seeing Member Welty agree with that. So, all right. So the next piece for action items, there was a presentation requiring approval. We had a proposal of the Duluth Public Schools organizational structure toward the end of the meeting. Superintendent Gronseth presented to us, brought an up-to-date past and current organizational structure for the district as a next step in the district's strategic plan initiative. The superintendent presented a revised Duluth Public Schools organizational structure, which brings departments and positions into alignment toward achieving the goals included in the district-wide continuous improvement plan. One thing I want to note is that this is a cost-neutral change within the structure of our district, and and I'm guessing that we'll have some more discussion on this, but seeing that we as a group can support have a supportive structure to be really supporting curriculum and aligning with a 21st century learning model structure, I really support this. I think it's a great proposed for the organizational structure. So it would be recommended that Duluth School Board accept and approve the proposed Duluth Schools organizational structure.
Member Harla.
Yes.
If I may. Our next item is recommended changes for the 2013-2014 school year. As we all know, we're living in a paradise up here, and if you saw the forecast for Thursday, it could be 45 below with a high of 1 below, and we have a stretch of 10 more days, and then March comes in like a lion, and we will have more snow. With that being said, we do have some information as far as how we can work out the makeup of school days, and at this point in time, I'm going to ask that we table action item 2 and 2 with the recommendation of the superintendent We don't have to discuss this right now because there's some parameters, but we're in compliance, we're in good shape if we table this until March. Is there a second on that? That's my motion to table 2-2. I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Member Sliga-Punko. Any discussion? Member Welty.
Yeah, I in fact, think I suggested the idea of tabling this myself in an email to all of you. I think that's a very good idea. I think there's several reasons why we should, but I do have a couple of questions that I wouldn't mind asking about the subject in general, even if we don't act on this.
Right, as long as it doesn't deal with the specifics yet because they're being negotiated.
I understand that, but I have a couple of general questions. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, you don't mind if I ask them at this point before we continue on with the rest of the...
Well, all right, right now we have a motion and a second to table this until March. You want to discuss specifics about this particular one?
I guess what I would recommend is that we go through the whole thing, we pull this, ask for a couple of quick questions for me, if anybody else has any, and then move to table it, would be my preference.
And this, I'm just asking, this would be fine if you want to ask some questions, or would you rather wait? If we table it, would you rather wait till...
Parliamentarily, if no one objects, I'll ask the questions now.
Okay, or do you want to wait until we have our business meeting in March? When it's been tabled, then we can discuss it.
Well,
it's up to you. You can ask questions, but if you want to wait till March?
Well,
Here's the reason I'm bringing that up is because we don't know about our cold days or our snow days coming up yet, and I'm wondering if we're putting the horse before the cart. Now go ahead and ask your questions.
Okay.
I'm so confused.
Yes. Yeah, Art, you'll be.
Yeah,
you're first.
Here's one question. I know that this was discussed in. I guess it's the meeting. The committee is called the QLT meeting, and
Art, I turned this off.
I guess my question is just simply this: does the QLT have anything other than recommending authority? It's a combination of working with some teachers, various staff, and administrators. Did it make a recommendation to us that for a plan of one sort or another? And does it have the authority to have much say in this sort of a subject?
Our QLT is a branch of our Labor Management Relations Committee. They're kind of the working groups of those. They give recommendations after discussion with representatives from administration, teachers, school board, and then those recommendations come back to the QSC as recommendations to the administration and school board. This particular item does involve contract language, and so it has another level of complexity to it. Very often, things that we discuss at QLT have some contractual implications, but it takes both sides of us to agree to it. So we are still working on how we're going to find that common ground on this decision.
Is it possible that we might end up with a memorandum of understanding for how we deal with this time in the future? Okay. I guess that would be my only question for the time being. Thank you very much.
Member Johnston.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple comments. I'm going to vote for tabling it. I think that's appropriate there, but I want to say a couple of things why. Well, obviously, I think you probably all got as many emails as I had, maybe more. And, in reading those emails, people are referencing, or at least insinuating, that was other plans considered. And if there is, I hope that we in the board, when we put this back on the table, which I assume will be next month, that those are given to us. So I'm hoping that all the alternatives are there. I would like to suggest that if we have any contractual issues, that the school board, of course, should be apprised of that. I'm not asking for that now, but we certainly want to be apprised of that so we can make decisions based on those kind of comments, whatever those contractual issues are. So I'm asking for that to happen. I do have one other specific comment. I'm going to say this now, is that, again, I know we're going to be tabled, but I did notice that there's going to be a staff day. And the thing says only for certified staff. And I understand there's some kind of a grievance going on, and we're not supposed to talk about this, but apparently this is already being talked about as the certified staff only are being given a staff development day, according to this language. And again, I'd like to have that visited, and that goes back to the issues that I talked about before on pairs, and I think it's critical to talk about that, particularly when we're talking about makeup days. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Johnston. Member Harla.
Just point of order, we're looking to table this to have a discussion next month, correct?
Exactly. And again, there are some discussions going on, and we'll move on that. See no further discussion. Let's vote on tabling number 2.2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That has been tabled. Member Harla, would you go on to number 2.3, please?
Happy to. So 2.3 is our Ojibwe Immersion Program proposal, and the crowd that we had at the Education Committee sat for, about 2 hours? 2 hours. So huge thank you to the crowd tonight that has come in support of this program. And we heard about, so William Howes, the Office of Education Equity Supervisor, and Edie Howes, Supervisor of Indian Education, shared information on a proposal for the implementation of an elementary school Ojibwe language immersion program for the Duluth Public Schools to assist in meeting the aims and goals of the district. We had a great discussion as a board, but I think that this is a program that is something that I would be very excited to see open in our schools. Something Member Loeffler-Kemp and I have had a discussion about, just really how we can be supporting all parts of our school district. And one piece that Ms. Howes said to the group really stood out to me when she said that this is not just something about a language, it's about standing alongside a culture, and something about, it's a step forward that we can take to be better connecting with the Native American people. And it's important. The graduation rates that we're having and that are disparate really hit me. So I'm very excited to recommend that the Duluth School Board receive this as, that the Duluth School Board move to approve this item and move forward on this. So thank you again for all of your community support. I'm very, very proud to have that, and hope to see this move forward with this board. The next piece that we have here is the extended field trip request. The 5th grade students at Lakewood Elementary are traveling to Wolf Ridge Environmental Learning Center in Finland, Minnesota in February. Well, they already went. So students went to participate in interactive study, and it's an opportunity that a lot of different students in our schools take. And so it's recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the above extended field trip requests. The next piece that we have here is Policy 5140, newly enrolled students, health standards, newly named the immunization requirements. Attached there, we have revisions to our Policy 5140 for the newly enrolled students. We had Jason Crane, the Assistant Director of Special Education, and Camille Murphy and Sue Cedarberg, school nurses, who presented on this and is recommended. This is an important topic that we have. We need to make sure that our students are immunized. Having an opportunity to work in public health, that we don't have students that are immunized is a large issue. And so I want to say a specific thank you to St. Louis County that's going to come out to our schools and that are going to do some free immunization days for our students. And I'm glad that they're doing a lot of presentations and a lot of outreach to students. Specifically, it's our junior high students. When 7th grade students have immunizations that they need to get, and usually it's switching of schools that reminds you to get immunized, and since we have 6th through 8th grade schools, sometimes it's a little bit harder to forget. So this is a way that we can make sure that our students are immunized, and it lessens a threat to them and to people around them. So it was recommended that Duluth School Board receive this and accept this item for our first reading. And then we had, do I do the diploma requests now? Great. Okay, great. I would say, actually, sorry, the start of this meeting began with a student walking in the room with one of our counselors from a high school, who had tears in her eyes, walking in with a student who saw one of her teachers across the hall, and she had just graduated that minute. The student was crying, the counselor was crying, and it was really moving to see this. So that our students are I love to see that. So I proudly read the names of Justin Lane Lundquist, McCoy W. Newell, Nathan Brandon Green, and it's recommended that Duluth School Board accept and approve the above requested diploma awards. And then I move this committee report.
Is there a second? There's a second by Member Leffler Kemp. Any discussion? Member Welty.
Yes, I'd like to pull A1.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
I know, are you're the A1, the Dalian, or the action?
School
item?
organizational, yeah,
Okay.
action item.
2A1.
2A1, sorry, 2A1.
All right. Member Johnston.
I'd like to do, I think it's 1B.
1B. Online?
Page,
I'm sorry.
yeah, the online thing.
Online?
Yeah,
Okay.
comments on that.
Member Saliga-Punko.
Okay, let's see, I want 2A3.
2A3. Member Leffler Kemp.
3.
3. I'm not ready for 3. I'm sorry?
2, 3.
2,
2A3. Oh, the
same as Judy's?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, same one.
Is it the same
And
as
I just
Judy's?
want to speak towards that.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
then yeah, we can just do that.
Okay.
And Member Westholm.
1C.
1C. Any others? Okay, let's begin. I guess we'll begin in order. Member Welty.
Are we- By order by agenda item or by?
By who made the,
Who pulled it first? I'd be happy to take them in order and wait till my turn would be third in that.
all right, let's do that. Member Johnston, I think you start off with B then.
I was kind of hoping to hide behind everybody else speaking to tell the truth, but if you insist, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead. Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the online thing. Again, we all know that computers are a part of us, and everything from social media and what is a big part of our existence. But I do have concerns about it. I do want to express those. I'm going to vote for this, of course, but I'm going to do it with having a couple comments. Is that one, I brought these up and want to reiterate them again to the public, is that I do think that this is a replacement for teachers. And it also impacts the student-teacher ratio. And to me, having a whole bunch of students out there in the ozone out there, but maybe there's 20 students out there, and having one teacher sitting somewhere that's monitoring all the communication going on, I don't call that a very good student-teacher ratio. And again, these are usually children that need a little extra help. And again, all of us go to meetings and whatnot all the time on computers and all the many other programs that we have. And everybody knows how to use those, and I think sometimes by having an overemphasis on digital stuff for children can be detrimental. I mean, we need it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying we have to be careful with this implementation. And again, we have too many children sitting in front of digital equipment, not doing as much exercise, not getting as good food habits and exercise and all that. And again, I think there's a lack of personal interaction on it. When we have set computer stuff, I don't care if our computer programming is better than somebody else's, and I think that it is. But nonetheless, standardized computer programming is standardized computer programming. And it's very hard to modify standardized computer programming to the needs of a student, any student that is out there. And that's what a personal teacher sitting in that room can do on education is modify that according to, because they can see the teacher interaction. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing this. I'm just saying I think we have to be careful and not overemphasizing distance media or digital learning at the expense of, I think, interfacing between real teachers and real students in the same room. I think is really critical. So thanks for the discussion.
Thank you. Member Harla.
I just want to make one of the things that I took away from that was that with the online learning classrooms that it can't just have an unlimited number of students per classroom. Actually, the teacher that is teaching that online class has a set number that they can do for that. So I'm hearing what you're saying and making sure that we are continuing to have student interactions, but I'm remembering that from that piece. And also, it was neat, they showed us the national standard for what an online classroom is, and it's pretty much a textbook that was copied and pasted. And Miss Halver, my 10th grade math teacher, was actually there when she gave the presentation, gave a math class just like I received while I sat at Central in 10th grade. So it was interesting to see that. I'm imagining as someone who until later in life really grasped onto math, if I would have been able to have gone back and been able to go over my teacher's lessons in that way, I think I would have had a much better time. But knowing that we all have different types of learning, I think it's important to keep this discussion going. So I appreciate your comments, Member Johnston.
And Member Johnson, I agree with you. Teaching along, I've agreed with you a number of times. But, we have been to graduation ceremonies at Denfeld Central East and at Unity, and Unity is very touching. I mean, you see students and teachers just hugging each other, and I can't tell you the number of stories I've heard about students saying, this teacher turned my life around. And boy, that personal, I'm so conflicted in this, that personal touch is so much needed. Rousseau had the greatest plan for education, one-on-one education, and you think how much we could accomplish with that. Then on the other hand, you have that, what's out there. We're seeing ads of children upstairs in their room with their laptop, and mama's downstairs, and it's time to eat, and the child doesn't want to come downstairs because she's having so much fun on the laptop, and I'm just groaning. I said, give me a break. This student's not that happy doing online education, but it's out there, and unfortunately we have a lot of people out there who are trying to attract those students to come into their online education. So I think we have to jump on that train too. But if I had my druthers, I'd like to see the personal contact.
Why do I agree?
Hearing none, I think, Member Johnston.
I'll make it quick here, but thanks for all the comments. I mean, I agree with all of them, of course, and I know we got to do this, but again, I keep talking about the alternative is there. Something I forgot to say is we got to get kids outside these boxes. Got to get them outside playing in the snow. Yes, I love the snow. I really do, and we got to get our kids that like the snow and like the leaves and out there playing with the birds and all the other animals and all that kind of stuff. So there is an education in the world besides staring that little computer box. So
thank you. We move on to Mr. Westholm and Scott Anderson.
Yeah, and I would just like to make a comment about the grant application, and I won't go on too long about it, but Mr. Murky and I both had Scott Anderson he was one of the most gifted young people we have ever experienced, and he was tragically killed while test flying one of the Cirrus planes when Cirrus was first getting started, and who knows where he would have been at this point had he lived. But his friends and teachers and others raised some money, and that's now the profits from that money raised goes to sponsor the leadership forum that's run every summer that trains not only Duluth students but students all over the area from all kinds of schools, and so it's just a really worthwhile thing that's happening, and what a fitting memory for Scott Anderson and all he accomplished. But anyway, that's just a commentary about this program, and it runs in the summertime, and I don't know the exact dates, but if you ever have a chance just to stop in and see what's going on with these young people and what they're learning as leaders, potential leaders for our community and our schools, it might be worth time well spent on your behalf. So with that, that's just my commentary on what a great thing this is for our kids, and certainly it deserves our support, and I'm sure it will get our support.
Thank you, Mr. Wessel. Ms. Leffler-Kemp.
Yeah, just a commentary on that too. One of my children participated in that, and the leadership skills that they developed, and most importantly, the relationships that they developed with kids all across the region was really phenomenal, and was lasted him through his high school career. So talk to, not only go there if you can, but also just talk with kids who maybe have participated and see the impact that week in June had on their life.
Thank you, Member Leffler-Kemp. Member Sliga-Punko.
Thank you, Chair Murneke. I just have a quick question about this, because this is a grant application. Is there a chance that this might not be approved, or, this grant proposal? I mean, I'm just wondering, because I know I have a child that also did this a few years ago, and she said it was the best thing that she'd ever done as far as leadership. But how much in jeopardy are we of not getting this, or is it pretty much a given? It's just a formality, just because it's a lot of money, and it seems like they have to do this every year. Is there a chance maybe that?
Superintendent Gronseth.
I'll just throw in that my son, too, participated. But I'll have Assistant Superintendent Crawford address this. I know that he's been more involved with
I
it.
believe that this is a process that they've gone through for the last several years, and the money's always been available for this, to support this program.
Member Westholm and I were in the living room of Scott Anderson's mother and father when this got started, so we go way back, and they've done an outstanding job of providing the funds, and I think this is pro forma. We're just fine. Member Welty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to pull the question of the proposed public schools organizational structure out because it really deals with how much work our superintendent has to do. And this is one of the organizational charges. Even the school board members would not be able to read this, and you out in the audience can only guess as to what all this gibberish is. But it is the current organizational chart of the district, which basically comes down to this: the superintendent is in charge of the assistant superintendent, and Ed Crawford, the assistant superintendent, is in charge of everybody else. And I think most of us can agree that that's just not how the school district should operate. And I remember fondly a teacher's newsletter I got one of the few short years that I was a member of the teachers union, and reading one of the commentators in the newsletter commentating that the only job of a Duluth school superintendent was to call snow days. And by that measure, Superintendent, I've got to say you have done a superlative job this year. But now the superintendent, in his effort to not only call snow days, has asked for a very different arrangement. I think I have this right side up, and I would just point out that now the assistant superintendent has some help. He will no longer be managing the entire school district by himself, and I think 3 or 4 people will now be reporting to the superintendent. So I'm very strongly in favor of this organizational change, Superintendent, and I commend you for your diligence.
Thank you, Member Welty. Member Sliga-Punko.
Art was first.
I'm sorry. Member Sliga-Punko. Member Johnson, you wanted to comment on the organization? Yeah. Okay. Member Johnson.
Just wanted to comment on, there was an email talking about all the acts of God that we had here, and so I think that was referring to our superintendent. Is that correct?
Okay. We move on to 2, 3.
I just, he was first before.
You were done. How am I doing, everyone? Member Sligopunko.
That's all right. Thanks, Chair Murnicky. I have a question about this organizational structure, just Superintendent, just because I know we're waiting for a few retirements kind of as you're looking at this. And so I'm just wondering if this should be held for a couple more weeks just until we find out some of the things. And I'm also curious about why this ended up in education and not under HR with the changes.
Member Gronseth, Superintendent Gronseth.
Well, first of all, when we were talking about this at agenda setting, the question did come up, well, which committee would this go in? Is it HR, is it business, is it education? And we decided on education mainly because the purpose of bringing you this chart is to align our district resources and our positions with the district-wide continuous improvement plan. And this wouldn't serve to be the formal job description type things that would come to you under HR. Any positions that are on there that would be new positions would still need to come through you in the HR committee. Some of them may have existing titles or descriptions that are close that we might just have to tweak a little bit as we bring this to you. But what this is doing is, in a cost-neutral way, saying, I believe this is the structure that will best support the work that we need to do next to move forward with our curriculum pieces, with the education pieces, with graduation, with interventions, and an RTI system. You asked about waiting on retirements and things, and really the retirement pieces wouldn't affect the structure that I'm proposing. One of the reasons I'm bringing you this in February is if we look at our timeline of how we do our staffing. Usually in April, we try to, if anyone's going to be displaced, we try to get those out and try to get those postings up in time so that people who might be displaced might look at new positions. In order to be in that spot by April, we're looking at the structure in February, then any job descriptions that would have to come to you or tweaks to job descriptions would come to you in March, so that in April we would be ready to follow our process of postings and staffings and displacements. Did I get up all?
Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth. I went online today and I read the updated version. Thank you, Ms. Tallarico, for providing that for us. And we needed this. We do need this. We need to, we had some gaps in our organization. Over the years, the organizational structure of the board of the district has evolved, and sometimes we haven't delineated certain responsibilities. This does this, and I think we can move on this with confidence. And again, boards always have the ability to tweak. Member Harla.
Just a point of clarification that this is it's approving the structure. If we have specific questions about job descriptions within each of them, that would come before the HR committee at a future meeting. So specific position roles, if we have questions, would be that.
Member Gronseth, Superintendent Gronseth.
And let me clarify. I'm not proposing that every single job description on there would come forth. If it was a new job description or one that was changing, it would come before the committee. If it's just an existing position that's continuing and maybe going to be in another department, then it wouldn't necessarily be.
Member Sligopunko.
Superintendent, I just have a quick question about, we had a packet in our green folder. How is that different than what's in our?
Thank you. There's one difference on here. If you turn to the one with the CFO on the left, so the third page, and Oh, gosh. They are on, sorry. Can you help me? They are, I know what they are. Oh, thank you. I just couldn't see them on here. Where it says database administrator, the second and third box on the third page.
Third page.
Third page, right here.
These are technology positions that currently do exist. They're not additions to the plan. They were just omitted from this page. Currently, our technology department, although they are wonderful and talented, organizationally have been somewhat of an island. And in actuality, people within the technology department work with different groups. So there are two database administrators who work with HR and finance and payroll. And so in the organizational chart, they are reflected in that section. If you look at the curriculum area, you'll see additional technology positions as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Granseth. Member Salehi-Panko, 2A3, please.
Oh, wait. I got to go back to where we were. Oh, you just put it on, no wonder. Okay.
You're live.
Where am I? Right here.
Yes.
I have some questions about this, and I'm glad to see that it's recommended as informational right now, because
No, it's not.
it says informational here.
It's been moved. We moved that at the meeting. It's not.
Oh,
We're voting on it.
At the education meeting.
oh, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. Well, I have some questions. Just some of the things, I would like to find out what we will do if not enough children do sign up. Is there a something in place if we don't have enough? Because we were talking about 20 students, but then I saw the paper said 15 to 20, and maybe, I know we're looking at maybe adding years, but what is the plan that if we say maybe only have 10 or 12, or if funding doesn't come from integration anymore from the state? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs over the years. So if we have any contingencies in place maybe for that.
Superintendent Granseth.
Just making sure I get those questions down. Otherwise I forget. First of all, the number 15 to 20, depending on the school that this is housed in, 15 to 20 would not be an unusual number for a kindergarten, especially in a school such as Myers-Wilkins or Lower MacArthur, where there are several additional funding streams where we buy down those class sizes. As a former teacher at Nettleton, I can tell you that the usual class size of a kindergarten is around that 15, 16 number. So that wouldn't be unusual for them. However, if we didn't have enough students, obviously like any other program, any other class, we would need to have discussion about whether it continued. With this specific program, there are other funding sources available. It is, the majority of it is being funded through OEE, the Office of Education Equity, and Indian Education Office. The district's piece of this is the teacher portion, which we would be spending if we had 15 to 20 kindergartners in that school. So it's not an additional cost to the general fund. It is being paid for. Majority of it is being paid for with supplemental. If we, in future years, say, they had discussions about cutting integration. Luckily, the legislature put that back in place, and I think that they would continue to do that. There are certainly other funding streams that could be explored. increasing funding with Indian education. There could be partnerships with the universities that I know support this work and support this program. We could have future partnerships with the tribe. And I think that going forward, as we grow this program, we may grow partnerships as well that would help support the program. So that's how we could, in the long term, fund it.
Member Welty.
And in the same vein, if we had actually more students apply for this, would we still be talking about just one class this first year, or would it be possible to extend it to a second class? Would the funding or the personnel be available?
Superintendent?
Well, that would be a good challenge to take on. I suppose we would just have to see how many more is.
Member Slegapunko.
When do we find out which school? I know, a couple of schools have been decided or have been talked about, but I think one of the things I kind of thought that we were, still going to be talking about this, just because it seems like there's still a few unknowns about it. So when would we know what school and, how that would work as far as transportation or all of that?
Superintendent?
Mr. Crawford or Mr. Howes or Mrs. Howes, would you like to come forward and talk about timelines for decision making? No?
All right, no, let her. You'll be at the podium, Ms. House. And welcome, thank you.
Yep, thank you for having me. Good question. I guess what we kind of talked about and discussed as far as timeline and looking at location and moving forward, the way that I do things and the way that I was raised to do is just kind of see what the decision is and then continue to move forward from there. We have had some discussions as far as the buildings. We've had discussions as far as transportation and all the unknowns that you had talked about at the last meeting. And so I guess once we have a final decision, I will start making phone calls as soon as tomorrow morning to get this going.
Thank you, Ms. House. This is what we do. If you're building a building or if you're planning a new program, you get permission from the board and you move forward. You're not going to have all the answers prior to. We're going to work on this. We have wonderful staff who can do this. I think what we need now is approval by the board and we can start moving. Mr. Crawford?
I was just going to add that there have been a number of sites that have expressed an interest in housing this program, so I don't think it's going to be a lack of places to find. It's just a matter of strategizing and determining the best location to support this program.
Thank you. Member Slegapunko.
Thanks. I have two more questions. Just, are we looking at maybe as far as room, as we supposedly add classrooms, would it be better to look at some of our schools that don't have as many students? And the other thing is, when I talked to you, Superintendent, about this, you mentioned that, because I was asking about research, how this would help the graduation rate, and you mentioned that there was a school somewhere, and I would like to find out more about that, that you visited. That has...
I'm sorry. Eddie? Mr. Crawford, I'm sorry.
I wish Edie was still up here. Apparently she's the person who visited the site. Thanks.
Again, Ms. House, thank you.
Didn't work out tonight. What was your question, ma'am?
I had asked the superintendent about just research about the achievement gap in that, and he had mentioned that people had gone down to visit a school that has been doing this.
Yes. Earlier this year, as well as the end of last year, I went to visit a school over in LCO. It's the Waduka School. It's Ojibwe language immersion. I believe kindergarten through 5th grade. And according to their test scores, they did not introduce English until about 3rd grade. But once they did move forward and started doing the testing, the students showed in the 90% of passing tests. So when we're talking about the achievement gap, we're looking at within my department, within Indian Education, we always look at historically looking at high school and how do we get our students to graduate. But I decided through a lot of research that we do need to start early. We need to start with school readiness, because when students start at an earlier age and they're engaged and we are engaging their families, I believe that carries on throughout their education.
Thank you very much. The Education Committee, I'm sorry, who is?
Huh? No, we're good.
The Education Committee report has been moved by Member Harlan and seconded by Member Loeffler-Kemp, and somebody else wants to talk. I'm not seeing any lights. Okay, Member Loeffler-Kemp.
I had seconded it, and I did have a couple questions which got answered in the discussion, so particularly around enrollment numbers, and I would be optimistic too to ask the question of if we have more than one classroom, what is the plan? And I just wanted to thank again the presentation that we had at the Education Committee. I thought that you brought in some good research, the rationale behind it, and spoke towards the budget considerations. And so I really appreciated the homework and the presentation that you did. And also just really the moving stories with the speakers tonight as well. And I will be supporting this. I personally have had the opportunity to bring a child, pick her up and drop her off the last 2 years in this program up at UMD, and really know for this individual the confidence it gave her as she now is in another public school in our district. And so I look forward to our vote on this.
Thank you, Member Loeffler-Kemp. We'll now vote on approving the Education Committee report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It is passed. Mr. Welty, we move on to the Human Resources Committee report.
Well, first of all, I'd like to begin by thanking both members, Salika Punko and Chair Harla, for being concerned about the length and the substance of the Human Resources Committee, which is always so brief, because once again it will be very brief, perhaps mercifully for those who've been here tonight so far. We had no action items. The only thing we have are the most important things having to do with our employees, the people who work for us, and these are the things that we hope to act on this evening. There are a total of 8 certified appointments, 4 certified co-curriculars, 1 certified leave, 1 certified long-term sub, 1 certified retirement, 2 certified temp increases, 3 non-certified appointments, 1 non-certified extension, 4 non-certified leaves, 4 non-certified long-term subs, 1 non-certified permanent decrease position, location, condition. I like that one because it gives me more words to say. 2 non-certified permanent increases, 3 non-certified promotions, 1 non-certified reclassification, 2 non-certified resignations, 3 non-certified temporary decrease in positions, location, or condition, and 4 non-certified temporary increase position, location, or conditions. If there are no questions, Mr. Chairman, I would move the adoption of the HR Committee report.
Is there a second? second by Member Harla. Any discussion? Harry, do you have I'm sorry, Member Johnston.
Again, we talked about this, but weren't we supposed to be getting a pay equity report that's part of this, or, no, it's not here, but what's the status of that?
Member Swirsky.
It's just the notification that we received from the state, so they open up their system and we begin reporting into it. It's a process that takes place for the year. It's not due until next January.
Oh, okay, so we're not going to be getting anything, that breakdown on...
No. But at the point in time that we do submit it to the state, we do bring the report forward to the board to accept.
Okay. We'll vote on this. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? It passes. Thank you. We now move to the Business Committee report. Member Loeffler-Kemp, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, we too at the Business Committee had lots of discussion and had a lot of questions. Also at our Committee of the Whole meetings as we've been reviewing budget considerations, again, lots of good questions. I appreciate both Bill Hansen and Jody LeBlanc providing us with a lot of good background information, both at the Business Committee meeting, but as well as we've reviewed the budget considerations in the Committee of the Whole meetings. I also just wanted to mention at the many Think Kids meetings that I attended, I appreciated how we helped educate the public on school finances as well as how we were gathering information. And I just think that hopefully will make my job as the chair of the Business Committee easier because people got a lot of information at the Think Kids meetings. So just wanted to make those comments. In terms of the financial or the Business Committee report, the financial report, we had a list of the usual financial reports listed. Item number 2, we did not have any bids, RFPs, or quote reports. Number 3, we did not have any policy and regulations. Under number 4, contracts, change orders, and leases, we do have one recommendation concerning Congdon Park Elementary School, and it is recommended that the school board approve the change orders as listed above at Congdon Park Elementary School, reflecting a total decrease of $3,661. On Section C, we have a recommendation dealing with the City of Duluth and the Washington Center Use Agreement, and it is recommended that the Duluth School Board approve the lease agreement with the City of Duluth in the amount of $31,980. And under Section 5, resolutions, we have 2 recommendations. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board approve B2 143161, pledge of collateral, and B. Oh, do you want?
Yeah.
Just do the resolutions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So should we, do you want to go back to C?
Right. Okay, we'll start with the resolution, pledge of collateral B2 143161. Is there a motion to approve?
There's actually one more above with the change orders. Do we?
Okay.
That's not a
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, we don't, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
just do the resolution.
So is there a motion to approve the pledge of collateral?
Yes, I move it.
We have a move seconded by Member Saliga-Punko. Any comments, any questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we go to the second, we go to B5B, B2 143162, the joint purchasing agreement. Is there a motion?
It's recommended that the Duluth School Board approve B2 143162 joint purchasing agreement with the Cooperative Purchasing Network.
I'll second that.
Oh, all right. I'm going to back up, if you would. I'm sorry about this. It caught me off guard. Member Leffler-Kemp, would you read 5A, please, on page 59?
Okay. Okay. Pledge of collateral. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that it hereby accepts a 100,000 par value FHLB note maturing 12/12/2014, CU SIP number, pledged as collateral by North Shore Bank of Commerce.
And you move that?
And I move that.
I'll second.
We voted on it, we're fine?
Okay.
All right, now we go to 5B on page 60. Member Leffler-Kemp, would you read this, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Joint purchasing agreement with the Cooperative Purchasing Network, whereas Minnesota Statute 471.59 Subdivision 1 authorizes joint power agreements allowing subdivisions to purchase from contracts initialed by other political divisions, whereas it would be to the benefit of Independent School District Number 709 to have access to the purchase of contract items and services from current and future Cooperative Purchasing Network, whereas entering into such an agreement would pose no financial impact on Independent School District Number 709. Now there be resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, authorize the Director of Business Services to enter into a joint powers agreement with the Cooperative Purchasing Network for the purchase of contract items and services. I move.
B2, yeah.
Okay. Again, it's recommended that we approve Resolution B2 143163. Oh, excuse me, sorry.
Yeah.
B2
3162.
3162.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
I second it.
Seconded by Member Sagapunko. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0.
I know.
5C.
Okay.
Member Leffler-Kemp.
Let me see if I can get this one right. Okay, so we want to thank again Ron Solberg for putting together the legislative platform. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board approve Resolution B2 143163. And just note again, we made some changes that were corrected in the revised platform. And so on page 61, resolved by the school board, Independent School District Number 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the attached 2014 Duluth School District legislative platform be adopted. Resolution B2 143163.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Sagapunko, any discussion? Member Welty.
Yes, I don't know why this didn't occur to me before, and I guess I might at some point ask for us to consider making an addition to this. But one of the things that I would like our lobbyist to work for in St. Paul is to do his best to help the leadership of the TRA and the DFTRA integrate the pension program in Duluth into the state TRA.
It's the first one.
Is that
It's the first one.
state budget surplus?
Yep. Consolidation of the teacher retirement funds.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Thank you, Member Welty.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Never mind.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The three resolutions have been adopted. Informational, Member Leffler-Kemp.
And again, for informational, we had expenditure contracts, revenue contracts on page 64 and 112, and then facilities management and capital project status report on page 120. And I move, we don't have to move that. The rest of, I move the business agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Member Sliga-Punko. Any discussion? Member Welty.
This would be the point at which we would poll items. I have a couple of questions on the financial report, 1A.
Is that it? Okay. Any others? Member Johnston. Oh, I'm sorry. Here, back, there we go. Let's go through them. Which ones do you want to pull?
Just 1A, financial report.
Yep.
And I'd like to start with page 7.
Oh, I thought we were going to do one at a... We're going to discuss them after we go through all the polls.
Oh, okay.
All right. Member Johnston.
Oh, I thought it was Rosie's turn.
No, I thought he had more to pull, but no. Which one would you like?
1F.
1F. Okay. Any others? Okay, seeing none. Member Welty.
Just a couple of questions on, let's see, yes, page 7. And Mr. Hanson, I have to say that as I get reintegrated into the new school board, I'm trying to recall what took place in the old days. And of course, you are, for me, a transitional person because you were signed on to the school board in the last few months that I was a member of the school board. So I'm hoping that you have a little sense of history. I was very interested in comparing how we currently lay out our business report to how it was done in the old days, and it happened that I had one old complete school board agenda from 1997, which really is the dark ages before your time, and I'm sure things had already changed. And the question that struck me as I was looking on page, I think it's page, no, maybe it's page 4. I know I have it here, page 5. Well, I guess my question is basically this. On whatever page I was looking for, page, we got two page 7s. Wait a minute. Anyway, at any rate, the current budget takes note of the unrestricted funds and the restricted funds. And I remember a lot of discussion about that. Jody will remember we talked about that a great deal back when I was on the school board. But I was quite surprised that in the 1997 there was no separate line for that. There wasn't a separate restricted or unrestricted budget, and now there is. Can you tell me exactly what the unrestricted budget stands for these days and the restricted budget, what it stands for these days, and how that might have changed in the time since you've been here?
Mr. Hanson.
Member Welty, yes, I'd be glad to start, and Mr. LeBlanc can cover for me for any things that I miss. I guess it'd be easier to define the restricted side of the general fund as those items that are in fact restricted in some way. Either the funding that we get is for a particular source and is in fact restricted in how we do it, and we account for it separately because we have to pay attention to those types of things. On the unrestricted side, in this case it's the general fund unrestricted portion, and that is more to be defined as, in ways that we want it to be. Certainly still within, all of our expenditures have to fall within the parameters of meeting school district business and needs, but in this case we're more open, and it's more open and available to be used in ways that we define, you as a school board define for us.
Thank you.
That's so vague, it sounds like a slush fund. I'm sure that's not what you meant. Do you know how it came into use? Perhaps Jody can tell me how it came into use. did it have anything to do with the monies that we once set aside as part of our 10% reserve? Do either of these categories fit into that at all or not?
The 10% policy does address unrestricted expenditures in selected funds. Again, I think the unrestricted is more of a default out of the fact that the more intentional definition is to the restricted side, and in addition to grants and certain things that I mentioned before, federal monies that we get for title programs, integration monies from the state. There are other things like that those are the examples of what appear on the restricted side.
Mr. Hanson, Mr. LeBlanc, I'm wondering if you could set up a time to meet with Member Welty to go through these individual questions he has. Would that be okay? Mr. Welty, is it okay with you if you could meet with them and ask the questions?
Yes, it would be. I plan on doing that because I'm making something of a hash of my questions now. I do have one more that I'd like to pursue if I could.
Okay, and again, there are 8 of us up here, but, if it's something that they can answer on their own, but go ahead, one more.
I can't recall what page I saw it on, but I saw there was a category where we kept track of revenues that came from other school districts to Duluth over the last year, and the revenues, the expenditures from Duluth paid to other school districts. And I noted, although I'm not sure which page it was on, I thought for sure I had it here at one point, but we get a lot more money from other schools than we give out. And that's what I would have expected in the days when we had an awful lot of students that were coming into Duluth, open enrolling into Duluth. See if I can find, here it is. That one's page 18. And it says assets on the balance sheet due from other Minnesota districts to us. As of 6/30, that was $1,037,000. Either page 15 or 18, 18 in the board book. And then down under liabilities due to other Minnesota districts, that same date, June 30th, it was $106,000 that we apparently owed other districts. Is that the open enrollment money? And if so, is that a change, or is that some other transfer of funds for some other reason?
Mr. LeBlanc.
The state took over a majority of the transfers in and out between students for all school districts, so there's a uniform counting now of all students residing within the Duluth Public Schools, attending other school districts and that. So if we try to count them, the state and somebody else is trying to count that same student, it gets caught and what have you. So the states have taken over a majority of the transfers between school districts. What's showing here is some of the regular ed that we may be entitled to as a result of some unique circumstances with the student in that. But what is on the financial statements that you're referring to is residual amounts only and does not represent the true due from and between school district as it's netted at the state level. So we can go over that report with you at a later date too.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Again, Member Welty will contact you and set up a meeting, and we can go over the questions he has. Member Johnson, 1F, please.
I should back on the same one here I was talking
Okay,
about.
yes. You'll have the floor anyway. So.
Sure. Just like to suggest that I think the whole board would benefit from that discussion, not just Harry. So I would suggest that be a maybe even part of our budget committee, because
Business committee, yeah.
or budget or business, either one. But I know we do have the special budget committees going on now. So anyway, those discussions, I guess I'd request that be given to everybody, not just Harry.
No. Well, obviously, if any of us have any questions, I would recommend, and I've done this with Mr. Hanson on a number of occasions. I've asked him if I could come in and for a half an hour or so, and I've sat in his office and he's explained things to me. I remember doing the bonding questions we had. Mr. Hanson was very informative for me. And what that does is, instead of me taking all your time as far as my individual questions, I go in and I get my questions answered. If we want to do something in the business committee, that would be just great. And again, I'm only one of 7, but if there are individual questions, I think if I don't understand a certain thing, if I don't understand the Washington contract or something, I'll contact them and not take up your time. So.
No, I mean, I think everybody knows I come in and talk a lot too, but it might be a little bit easier on our staff instead of talking to all 7 of us alone, if you just come in and talk to everybody. Just a suggestion.
Okay, now, Member Johnson, it's number 1F.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the one I'm going to ask here is, I received in my packet this thing about, from Laura, actually, about a special ed thing, but it talks about students, so I thought I'd bring it up here, and I'm assuming everybody got that, and it wasn't in our board book, but I think I got it in the packet there. Does anybody know?
What is this? This was from Ms. Fredrickson?
Yeah, it was thing that came heading under from Laura Frederick. But, again, I'm not specifically, actually, no, you don't need to talk here. It's not, I don't think, well, maybe you do, but.
Okay.
Fredrickson, excuse me, Laura. And there was a couple of questions that has to do with, the numbers, so that's why I thought I'd bring it up here, if that's okay.
Sure.
I won't think it'll take too long.
Yeah.
Am I the only one who got that? If I'm the only one who got it, I won't talk about it, but. Did everybody get that? Okay. Well, anyway, this was just a thing, it was talking about special ed, but there are some numbers on there that I just wanted to kind of bring up in relationship to our whole Wadham thing. And I think I understand this right, and maybe I should ask the question first, but I think the numbers on this report are everybody that's residing within our district. I always get confused on people that are residing in our district versus those who are actually going to our schools. And if I understand it right, and certainly maybe correct me if I'm wrong, is that the public students enrolled, that's, I think that's everybody in our district, right? Not just people that go to our school. Is that correct?
Dr. Fredrickson, could you come up, please? Thank you. Dr. Fredrickson.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Again.
And I'm sorry, what was your question?
Oh, I don't quite sure I understood this, and on the top chart here, do you have it, Dr. Fredrickson? This one, that one, yeah, okay, thank you, yeah. Anyway, it says public schools enrolled under the school enrollment on the first table up there.
Yes.
I think the first row after the years is, I think that's everybody that's in residing in the district, but not necessarily going to our schools, with the footnote on the bottom, except the charter schools. Am I reading that right, or?
It does list student enrollment of special education students. So the top one would be, are we looking at the same thing?
I think of this, the top one has nothing to do with special ed, I don't think.
As far as receiving the service, 1,468?
Well, the student enrollment, and then the row under that is public schools enrolled. Then there's a bunch of numbers from 2009 to now. Okay. It goes from 97 down to 9,200. And I'm just trying to reconcile it basically with our Wadham report, and I'm thinking that's how many students are residing in our district, but not necessarily going to our schools. I'm just trying to clarify what that number.
Well, What I'm seeing is for 2013, in our public schools, we serve 1,468 students in special education services.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay. I was wondering about the top ones, that number about the public schools enrolled, like for 2013 is 9,248.
So that's how many total students?
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to find out.
Yes.
Member Hanson, can you help us out on this one for a second? Mr. Hanson.
Enrollment reports tend to be very confusing, in part because they always use different bases for their numbers. And while I am not intimately familiar with this number that's presented here, it strikes me that it's a head count based number as opposed to a percentage of enrollment based number that we have presented for you on the ADM or WADM report.
And this was reported on December 1st. We're required to report our numbers to Minnesota Department of Education. So at that time, when we took the snapshot, we were serving 1,468 students in special education, and that snapshot showed that there were 9,248 students that were enrolled in the district on December 1st. Excuse me.
In reading your cover letter, it says that the federal child count includes all resident students, regardless of whether they are served in the district or at another Minnesota district. So that's what I was thinking.
Okay, and the 1,468 were students that we were serving in the Duluth public schools.
Okay, what about the 9,248 figure?
That's all students.
Right.
So general ed and special education students.
Okay, ones that reside or that are resident students?
They would be all students that we can count on our December 1 count. So they were enrolled here. They might be foster students that are enrolled in our district. So yes, it would be students that were enrolled and attending classes and receiving special education support in Duluth. The 1,000.
Okay, but...
Member Johnson, I'm going to go back to you. Member Harlan has a question, and I'll follow up with you.
I think I'm trying to understand what you're asking. So, Dr. Fredrickson.
Yes.
Just making sure. Member Johnston, are you asking, do our surrounding schools that maybe that students that we could be serving, the 20% of students that we're not, say they're attending a charter school or a private school, are they included in this number? Because I know we do pay for the services for those students at the surrounding schools.
No, this is the students that are actually enrolled in the Duluth public schools.
Thank you.
Member Johnson.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because our WADM number says 8,500, and this number is saying 9,200, and I thought that was, again, your cover sheet says it includes all resident students, whether or not they are served by the district. So I'm just trying to find out. I don't know either.
I was just trying to understand what you were asking.
Member, Mr. Hanson.
I'll say again that these are numbers that are head count related, and the WADM and ADM reports are not counted the same way, so you can't compare these numbers because ADM and WADM presentation numbers, if a student is part-time, they're going to be reflected as a part-time student on there. So everything's fractional on that report, whereas I'm pretty sure this data from looking at it appears to me similar to our October 1 numbers that are reported as head count based. These also, I believe, are head count based, and they're not apples to apples with the WADM or ADM report.
Okay. Member Johnson?
Yeah, no, I'm still confused. I know what a WADM is. That's a weighted unit average. I know that, and the ADM is not. The numbers just don't seem to jive to me. I guess not a big deal. I can talk about it later, but I'm just trying to figure out what this is. And say, for example, our Wadhams, we know our current, or our ADM, I should say, currently is at
Superintendent Gronseth.
ADM.
Yep, and I get that it can be confusing to look at ADMs and Wadhams and head counts, but the really important thing is that they are counted differently. Her head count that she's talking about is from December of special education, and you're looking at a Wadham or ADM or Wadham report from February. They're going to be different. You're not going to be able to use them together because they're counted differently.
Excuse me, in order for us to count the 1,468 students, they had to have a current individualized education plan or program. So that's where we're getting the 1,468. So it would be a current IEP that we were counting, and they are on our caseloads.
Mr. Hanson.
I'll try this example. If we have a homeschool student that enrolls with us for one class, on the ADM and Wadham report, that student will be reflected as a .17. On this report, where you're citing the students enrolled district or data for the district, that same student would be reflected as 1.
Okay. Member Welty.
Dr. Frederick, I don't envy you trying to figure out the numbers here, because I think your primary concern is really with the number of students that have IEPs.
Correct. That's what these numbers reflect.
But then you are pulling it from a larger figure of the total student population. And I believe you just said that first line that says public students enrolled refers only to the ISD 709 public school students in Duluth? Well, these numbers do vary a little bit. I believe on the Wadham report that we currently have for February, not when was
December
this? Not
1st.
December, so a month and a half, 7-8 weeks later. We have a figure of 8,553. So there's a deviation of 700 students there, which is a bit of a puzzle that would be nice to be explained. I'm sure those are. You said these are all ISD 709 students, so we can't say that they represent some of the Edison students who are also part of a public school system as well. But maybe somebody could investigate this and try to figure out where the two different figures came from, because 700 is a pretty significant head count. But thank you very much for explaining this to us.
Member Johnston.
Sure. I'm confused on it, because it does in the small print or the footnote down there, it says this child count includes all special ed students that are residents, and that means more than just the people that are going to our school. And again, I'm not worried about the special ed number. I'm not asking about the 1,468. I'm not interested in that. I'm asking about the one on the top. Just again, reconciling our numbers. Going back 4 years, this says we've only, say why this is kind of important, as Mr. Welty has indicated, is that I went back and looked at our 2009 ADM through our Wadham report, and we've lost about 1,200 students in the last 4 years. But this indicates we've only lost 500, so there's a lot of discrepancies here. So again, I'm just trying to figure out, I think it's just because, hey, which ones are you counting? So we can talk later about it, but to jive with our other numbers that the board has been given. I think mainly because we're not understanding what the numbers are, not because.
Dr. Frederickson, I don't know if it be you or Dr. Lake or in conjunction with everybody, but I think you get the gist of the questions, and perhaps at our business meeting in March, you can
clarify.
Come to a meeting, we can put that on the schedule, and we can ask you these questions.
Sure.
Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to a vote of the Business Committee report. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed? None. We have no special resolutions. I have one comment I'd like to make for questions and others, and I'd welcome any others. Sue Tallarico, you've done a wonderful job presenting us with your policies handbook that's in front of Mr. Westone. I want to thank you for the work. I know it's incomplete and you're continuing to work on it, but you did a lot of work on this, and we as a board appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Member Johnston.
Sure. One of the things I was going to bring up was, it was mentioned, and no, was it the superintendent or a speaker about our graduation rates? And I've read this in the paper too, and correct me if I'm missing something, but I've received nothing. I don't think we've received anything from the administration. Correct me if I'm wrong, that if somebody sent out a big packet that that I missed in my hundreds of emails that we've got in the last few days, but I don't remember getting, but correct me if you sent it out and I missed them. Is there some report on our graduation rates? I've read a lot in the paper. Seems to me I did got one email that was going to be coming about a week ago, and I didn't see anything.
Superintendent?
I'm looking at Mr. Crawford and Dr. Lake.
Notice he's back a bit.
They're coming. I believe those, sorry, I believe the numbers that we received came out after your committee meeting, but they were released to the newspaper, and I believe it's on the upcoming agenda, but I'll just let Assistant Superintendent Crawford answer for me.
Assistant Superintendent Crawford.
And I'm not totally confident in my answer here, but I'll check first thing in the morning, but I believe that my assistant, Terry Dezuk, sent that information out. I know that Dr. Lake is planning to provide additional information at the next Education Committee meeting.
Thank you. Superintendent?
I was just going to say that's what I thought. I thought the information had gone out, but I couldn't recall it.
Member Harla?
I have it on my phone, so.
There we go.
Thank you for sending it out.
For those of us who don't have phones, we'll have to find another way. Member Johnston?
I had
did you still have something to say?
Were you on the same point? Member
All right.
Johnston?
In order, Member Harla, you would be first, Member Johnson would be second, so did you have anything further to say?
I think he was continuing his point. I was just maybe
Back to Member Johnson. I'm sorry about this.
Well, I also look in my email, but I know when I first heard about it in the paper, I did get an email that said, well, it's going to be something in the paper, but I'll send stuff out to you later. And again, I'm just asking people here that when I read stuff in the paper, people call me up and I don't have a clue what they're talking about. I'm just asking for the courtesy that when things are given to the paper, that the board be given that as well. At least be given something, so when somebody calls me up, and at least I'll have something to say. Otherwise, I don't know, call up Jana. It seems like not the best answer for a school board member to give a constituent, and asking that, try not to happen as much as it does happen quite a lot.
If I'm not mistaken on this one, this is a report that was issued by the MDE, and it went to the newspaper. The newspaper published it before our staff could get to it, if I'm not mistaken. So, Member Gronseth, Mr. Superintendent Gronseth.
I did want to say that was a report that goes from MDE directly to the media. We do get that. We did send it out to you, and if we send it out to you and the media is talking to the state, I can't intervene in between those two, but please check your email.
And again, sometimes the state gets something out quicker than we can react. Member Welty.
Thank you, Chair Murphy. I just make the observation, I know that our school board is somewhat youth challenged, and our youngest member very quickly found all of that on the book. Did that come out of the board book? Is that where you found it?
From my email?
From your email. So it was somehow connected as a link from the email.
Assistant Superintendent Crockford was correct that his assistant sent it out to all of us. I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday.
It is freezing out. It's cold. Member Welty. I thought we were adjourning. Apparently we're not. All right, let me see. In order, Member Harla.
I just wanted to, there was a really great piece that the Student Leaders for the Future at East did about some inclusion within the school, so I'd recommend that the board take a look at that. They've been working on this documentary for quite a while, and maybe it would be possible to have those students come to speak at one of our future education committee meetings. I would love to see some of our student leaders that are part of that.
That's excellent. Member Lafleur Kemp.
Yeah, it is excellent, and that would be great to have to highlight. I just wanted to mention that Member Saliga and myself will be going down to the School Board Association Lobby Day this Thursday. We look forward to bringing the legislative platform from the district there with us as we meet with our elected officials.
Again, we'd like to thank Member Lafleur Kemp and Sligo Punko for putting in the time for that. Student Member Manning.
We had the Students for the Future Assembly a few days ago, and it was very good what they put together, so I'm sure they'll be glad to come. I'm associated with them, so they can always come and talk to you at one of these meetings. I've been quiet for a bit because, you guys have some pretty good opinions, and I just haven't disagreed, so I don't have much to say. I'm just gonna bring something. This item is informational. In a couple weeks, I'm planning on bringing together a bunch of students into a type of forum to bring issues that they see to help improve their school, so they don't feel that they're stuck in it and can't change it themselves, and to empower them to feel like they have that opportunity. So in a couple weeks, I'll talk with the superintendent about this and Merneke about you guys coming and talking with the ideas that they brought up, and they can have some dialogue. So I look forward to that, and just letting you guys know about that.
We really appreciate that, Mr. Manning. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for the student involvement, student information. You just have to look at Mr. Welty and myself. You can see that we're old as dirt, and we do, no offense here, and we do appreciate your input on that. I don't know why I picked on here on that one. Member Johnston.
A different topic.
I was just going to ask a question on that.
Okay, hold it. There we go.
Is that going to happen to make sure it happens at both high schools?
I'm not communicating well with the Denfeld representative, but for now, just East, and then we can work on it.
Any information, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Member Johnston. Oops, you did what I call a grunt, Seth.
That's okay. A couple things. Mr. Manning, I always like reading the student papers. It's always a good read, and certainly suggest some of the editors ask school board questions. Well, I've never seen an article ever about anything on the school board other than every once in a while about the clock or something like that, and that went on for a while. But have them to give us a call once in a while and ask us something, I think would be appreciated from both sides, actually. I do have the different topic. Unless somebody's going to ask another question on that.
No, you're up.
That had to do with the student speaker. I'd forgot about, or not the student speaker, the public speaker, the lady that was talking about the school bus issue. I guess I'd like to suggest that we put that on our agenda here. It's a topic there. She put a lot of effort into doing this. It's something I've actually heard a few things about it campaigning, and I think it's worthy to talk about that as a board.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Member Manning.
Okay. Well, I happen to know an editor at the newspaper, so I'm sure they can help you out there. I just wanted to thank the superintendent for bringing the curriculum issue forward, so now we can start working on education. I really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to adding some new enriching curriculum to get people interested in their education. I think that'd be great. And as we go forward with like meetings with students, I'm sure they'll have ideas. And my personal pet project, hopefully, is music theory class. I'd really like to see that at some point. So hopefully I can be involved in some of your meetings. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
You're always welcome, excuse me, to come to the committee meetings and we can discuss that. Member Johnson.
I just want to reiterate again that I really would like to talk to these people. Not just to me afterwards. I think this is an important issue, and these are employees, a lot of employees, and I think they deserve to be spoke to.
Superintendent Gronseth, you can maybe give us a background on this?
I wasn't putting you off on that topic. I just wanted to clarify what exactly you wanted that agenda item to say, which I'll talk to you about afterwards.
Thank you.
There are some issues. Seeing no other lights, we are adjourned. Thank you.
8:45. Well.